Heather had only been a mother for a year when strange things started to happen in her house. She became apprehensive that something nefarious might be happening when she began to hear noises in her Michigan home at night. She soon discovered that her child had a problem. She and her family could never have predicted the disturbing truths she found when she started her investigation. Heather had secrets of her own to share as well. For Heather, life appeared wonderfully hopeful, with many wonderful things ahead of her. She was living with her fiancé, Joshua, and their 1-year-old daughter, Lily. They were happily married, had a lovely little daughter, and resided in the quiet, routine town of Highland, Michigan. It's difficult to picture such a happy life being upended. But sadly, dread and uncertainty were about to cast a cloud over this young family's seemingly ideal existence. One morning, when Heather spotted scratches on Lily's little face, everything began to change. Any mother would get alarmed at the sight of scrapes on her child's face. But Heather quickly had more serious worries. She started hearing unusual noises about the house in the late hours of the night. The noises she heard every night, be it a thumping on the floor or a creaking of a door, grew more frequent and unsettling. But Heather didn't begin to question whether there might be a connection between the two incidents until she noticed Lily's scratches. Even when the previous scratches on Lily's face healed, new ones continued popping up, which made the situation worse. It had only been a little over a year since Heather and Joshua moved into the home. Despite the fact that they were still getting to know the area, they felt more at ease because Joshua's mother truly owned the guest home. However, they started to wonder if there was a severe problem with the house because of Lily's frequent, unexplained scrapes and the constant, unsettling noises Heather heard at night. Heather was stalled in her tracks when she made the horrifying discovery when investigating how Lily was getting scratches. Even though she was close to Joshua, she couldn't help but worry whether he was somehow involved. Is he the source of all the nighttime noise and the reason Lily keeps scratching herself? Heather went to Joshua to tell him about her suspicions, but he denied being involved. Heather felt certain of her innocence, but she couldn't shake the disturbing thought that an unknown presence might be lurking in their home. Heather, who needed answers badly, went to extreme lengths, like buying a pricey Circle 2 baby monitor with great night vision. She was crossing her fingers that this gadget might shed light on the spooky goings-on in their guest house throughout the night. The sounds and Lily's scrapes made Heather wonder if an animal was sneaking inside the house. This notion is called into question, though, because she was quite particular about shutting all doors and windows at night. Heather was sure the baby monitor would give her the answers she needed when she set it up in Lily's room. When Lily got scratches again the following morning, Heather couldn't wait to watch the tape. It was her sincere wish that the monitor had recorded every detail in the hopes of one day learning the truth. After that, Heather started going over the footage and noticed something that caught her off guard. In order to verify her observations, she rewound the movie several times. Somebody must have spent the night in Lily's room. Heather was right in her initial assumption that it might be Joshua. The longer she watched, though, the more her assumptions began to crumble. Clearly, something wasn't right. Heather captured the sight of a glowing apparition, resembling a man, as it glided across Lily's bedroom in the video. The figure was still difficult to make out, even though the night vision on the camera was working fine. It slid across the room with an almost translucent quality. Heather observed as the shadowy figure strode by Lily's crib. making the little girl tilt her head as if alerted to an impending danger. It seems as though Lily had observed the apparition and possibly sensed its presence on several occasions. Heather felt her heart sink when the figure locked eyes with the camera. Could what she believed she saw actually be happening? Somehow. The ethereal figure was obviously moving and staring at the camera. Despite how insubstantial it appeared. When Heather started to feel strange, she started to question whether she was really experiencing the paranormal. No one wants to be the paranormal investigator. But she couldn't help but pay attention to the footage showing what appeared to be a spectral figure. In an effort to ascertain if her perceptions were fictitious, Heather chose to show Joshua the video. The footage from the baby monitor scared Joshua as much as it scared Heather. In a subsequent interview with Detroit News, he expressed his disbelief and described the ordeal as terrifying. For Heather and Joshua, it was a what-if situation that literally sent shivers down their spines, making them wonder what they had just witnessed. They started to question if they were supposed to be in the residence after seeing the video. They considered the horrifying possibility that a demonic presence was trying to drive them out of their house. They chose to ask for assistance from the authorities since they had no idea what to do. Heather and Joshua contacted the local police department in the hopes of receiving help. The police did not regard it as their problem, despite the absurdity of the situation. Rather, they directed the couple to the Scientific Paranormal Investigations of Michigan, a professional group. This organization was prepared to deal with such circumstances. Unlike the police, because it was devoted to the study of paranormal phenomena. They had seen a variety of spectral phenomena and were practically modern-day Ghostbusters. The group, led by Mike Priest, co-owner of Scientific Paranormal Investigations of Michigan, arrived at the former guest home equipped with sophisticated technology that went well beyond a simple baby monitor. They staked out the house, set up their weapons, and got ready to see if there was anything really evil hiding in the shadows. It was astounding what they discovered. The specialists came to the conclusion that there was a chance that demonic spirits were haunting the guest house after going over the evidence they had gathered. The disturbing noises they captured in the room helped the tale garner a lot of attention. Mike Priest described the unnerving event to Detroit News, stating that they heard a clear voice say, "Oh, here we go." "Oh, yeah." Priest continued his investigation after that. He stated a strong conviction that something strange was going on at the property and announced his intention to go into Joshua's mother's primary residence. He reasoned that the spirits might be haunting both houses together. That's when Heather remembered something else that made everyone frightened. Heather started to recall strange things that had happened to her previously in the house after the experts told her that a ghost might actually be living there. "I woke up one morning, ready for work, and it felt like someone was choking me," Heather said. She hadn't told Joshua until now, mainly because she didn't think he would accept her story. She had persuaded herself that the invisible force she felt had to be a fabrication of her imagination since she didn't want to be seen as insane. Nevertheless, she had been more reclusive than she had guessed. Heather remembered the choking incident and other terrifying events from the past year spent in the house, as if someone had stubbed their toe in another room. She recalled numerous mornings of hearing an irate male voice. People might think Heather's fiancé Joshua is rambling about, but Heather noticed that he was constantly lying next to her when these things happened. This disproved his theory that he was the source of the irate voice. The specialists' resolve to fix the situation was further strengthened by this new information. In spite of the success of their first stakeout, Mike Priest and his team intended to return to Heather and Joshua's house for a thorough ghost hunt. They know how critical it is to report the news from every possible perspective while keeping an eye out for any hidden agendas. Going ahead. They want to try to imitate the peculiar noises they heard in the chamber. The ability to replicate the noises raises the possibility that they were artificial. Nonetheless, there are more indications that the house may be haunted. A frightening piece of information was revealed by Chris, Joshua's mother, who had lived there for 11 years. And it put a cloud on the case. It was disclosed to them 11 years ago, when they purchased the property, that the prior owner had passed away in the main house. The woman took a terrible tumble down the stairs, fractured her hips, and laid there for a long time before she passed dead. According to Chris elaborated by saying that the woman's brother, who suffers from schizophrenia, was the original intended recipient of the guest house. Is it possible that this is the specter that haunted Joshua's house and Heather? Jim, Joshua's dad, has an alternative theory that could be more reasonable. Jim thinks the specter might be the first guest home resident, not Chris's schizophrenia-stricken sibling. Jim claims that the man may have committed himself after jumping from the window on the lower floor. This is a heartbreaking tale, but it may provide light on the identity of the person causing Heather, Joshua, and Lily distress. It seems like there are a lot of people that could be involved in the haunting if you combine Jim's and Chris's stories. The ghost's real powers are of particular worry to Heather and Joshua, afraid that it may do anything else. Heather expressed her concern. Because of this, we are eager to depart as quickly as possible. Physical harm is starting to set in now. Scratches on their daughter Lily's face were the clearest indication of the ghost's potential physical skills. They considered the idea that the ghost was responsible for the scratches after seeing video evidence and hearing insights from paranormal experts. There are alternative theories, though. Even though Heather's video footage was frightening and captured the attention of people worldwide, there were some doubters. To be honest, not many people believe that the figure in the video is indeed a ghost. Skeptical Inquirer magazine contributor Kenny Biddle questioned the veracity of the footage. The fact that the figure in the video casts a shadow, as noted by Biddle, shows that it is a real, tangible thing with the ability to reflect light. He suggested that the ghost might really have been caused by Heather or Joshua wandering about the house in the dark while the video camera had a malfunction. Biddle speculates that they might have stopped the camera and moved around the space without realizing they were still being watched. Furthermore, he hinted that Heather and Joshua could not be entirely aware of how video cameras operate, which could have caused them to wrongly think the flickering figure was a ghost. If Biddle is right, then there's a problem: how to account for baby Lily's face scratches that don't go away. Although there may be technical reasons, Biddle contends that self-scratching by babies is not unusual. He suggests that Lily might just be making nightly scratches to herself. Heather chose to clip Lily's nails after considering the risk of self-harm, but the scratches persisted and the markings were not the same size as Lily's nails. This implies that Biddle's idea might have some holes in it. Subsequently, Biddle happened onto a potentially transformative finding on social media. He discovered that Heather and Joshua had created a GoFundMe page where they were asking for donations of up to $5,000 in order to vacate their guest house. Fear was Heather and Joshua's primary motivation for requesting up to $5,000 in order to vacate their guest house. Kenny Biddle expressed his misgivings to the public, saying, "I'm not sure exactly what the motivation behind these claims is, but I do have my suspicions." He doubted that Heather and Joshua's narrative was true. and he wondered whether it was just a scam to make money. Rather than making assumptions, Biddle chose to get in touch with Heather directly via Facebook. He identified himself as an investigator with more than 20 years of expertise looking into paranormal allegations in his message. Although Biddle showed interest in her video, she asked for a lengthier version in order to collect more proof. "I'm not saying this was a hoax, I'm just trying to get as much information as possible," he wrote to his wife. With his wealth of knowledge in the industry, he expected her to supply the extra footage. Regretfully, Biddle received no response from Heather. It would make sense for her to evade investigation if there were any inconsistencies in her account. She might not have responded, though, for other reasons. It's possible that Heather felt no duty to respond to investigators since she was so overwhelmed by the attention her narrative received. She was perfectly entitled to privacy at such a trying moment. Despite their continuous efforts to vacate the guest house, Heather, Joshua, and Lily appear to still be residing there. According to reports, they can't get rid of their worries since they keep having strange experiences. "It feels like it's going after myself too," Heather remarked. "We want to get away from this as quickly as possible." It makes sense that they would want to go away as soon as possible given the upsetting experiences they have had. Ghosts or not, there is no denying that something unusual is going on in that house.
After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story. What could possibly be disturbing her to the point where she is yelling and making a racket all over the hospital? In her 20 years of nursing practice, Nurse Nancy had never seen anything as terrifying as the girl known as Sleeping Beauty in her ward. For more than 15 years. These two words have aptly described Luz Maria's journey. 15 years have passed since Maria's comatose body was discovered on the sidewalk of a busy downtown street. She was 8 years old at the time. A life support machine was inserted into the child's body after she fell into a coma. The school officials said that Maria came to school alone and that nobody recognized her parents, but they were able to identify her school by her outfit. No amount of searching could lead to the discovery of Maria's parents. Because of this, nobody had to pay for her medical expenditures. Would the parents come forward, saving the girl's life, or would they abandon her to die? It took Sergio and Catalina, Maria's parents, a few weeks to make it to the hospital. After years of trying, the old couple finally had a kid not long ago. Catalina sobbed openly when she learned from the medical personnel that they would not be able to pay the expenditures associated with keeping their daughter alive. Leaving the doctor's office quietly, she did not utter a word. After then, Sergio gave the order to remove Maria's life support, but the whole medical staff had become connected to Maria and felt terrible for her situation. Many of them, like Nurse Nancy in particular, cared for her as if she were a daughter and did not want her to pass away. It was Nancy who talked to Maria most often and who would occasionally play music for her. Nancy appeared to have a unique bond with the child, maybe even a maternal one. To anybody watching, she played the role of guardian angel and main caregiver for her. Maria had been known as Sleeping Beauty among the medical staff for her breathtaking good looks, as a symbol of their shared concern. Nancy pushed her co-workers to chip in for Maria's medical bills. Out of all the medical professionals in the hospital, Dr. Eduardo gave the most money. With unwavering commitment, he oversaw the hospital's operations as its medical director. Dr. Eduardo treated Maria with the same kindness as Nancy, but Nancy knew that her co-workers might not be able to keep up with Maria's medical expenses indefinitely. Because of this, she also set up a GoFundMe website to collect donations for the expenses. The old couple had additional difficulty due to the distance between the residence of Maria's parents and the hospital. "I find it challenging to stay here daily for Maria," Catalina admitted in Nancy. "I am only able to bring Sergio on rare occasions because he uses a wheelchair. My health is really suffering since I want to be with my daughter all the time. You have become her second mother in a way. Can you take care of her in my absence, at least twice a week?" I will stop by. Nancy accepted and felt privileged to be Maria's caretaker. Catalina died a few months later. At that point, Maria had been unconscious for more than 14 years, and most people had given up on her ever coming to. The only people who held on to hope were Nancy and Sergio. Maria had skipped her entire adolescence and was now a stunning woman instead of a young child. She had never gone to prom or even high school. If and when Maria awoke, she would discover that she was no longer the person she had known, that her mother had left her, and that she had unexpected duties as a young lady. In essence, she would be an adult with the body of an 8-year-old. This was Sleeping Beauty's new reality. Nancy was rendered a wheelchair-bound victim of a catastrophic accident that occurred one day when she was traveling to work. She was told by the doctors that her recuperation would take several months. Dr. Eduardo assumed responsibility for Maria's care as Nancy was unable to do so. Dr. Eduardo was told by a nurse after a while that Maria hadn't had her period in a long time. After doing certain tests, the doctor concluded that Maria was having irregular menstruation, but he gave her the reassurance that nothing was wrong. Every time Nancy was alone from Maria, she felt anxious. She even requested periodic updates on Maria's condition through images and videos from Dr. Eduardo. Nancy needed half a year to heal from her wounds. She didn't hesitate to visit Maria at the hospital as soon as she was cleared to walk again. Nancy was as happy as a mother who had been separated from her child for 180 days, the nurse observed, but Nancy saw something different when she saw Maria. In addition to growing during those 6 months, Maria also put on weight that didn't seem to be compatible with aging naturally. Nancy couldn't understand why Maria had multiple blankets covering her. Nancy was taken aback by what she saw when she lifted the covers. She screamed Dr. Eduardo's name as she bolted out of the room, overwhelmed and unable to process what was happening. Dr. Eduardo would not be in the hospital for the next 2 days, the first nurse she saw in the hallway told her. Nancy inquired about the issue several times but was unable to express how upset she was. Rather than let the nurse see it for herself, she pulled her to Maria's ward. Nancy stammered and asked, "How is she pregnant?" "Truly, she is expecting a child. She has gained weight and her tummy appears to be slightly larger, thus she must be pregnant." As more medical professionals entered the room, one of the nurses noted that although they had seen changes in Maria, testing performed by Dr. Eduardo had revealed no problems. Nancy persisted on running additional tests to validate her suspicions. It was evident from the results that Maria was undoubtedly pregnant. This was not a case of a miracle coming to save the day. Maria had been duped. Nancy objected with the suggestion to conduct an internal probe. After learning of what had transpired, Sergio became enraged and called the police. After Maria's baby daughter was delivered via C-section 2 months later, the father was sought after. To find the father of Maria's daughter, DNA testing was performed on every male employee in the hospital. The test results showed that the father was none other than Dr. Eduardo. He had taken advantage of his position to hide his activities and make sure that any attempts to bring him to light would be unsuccessful. The nurses observed that Dr. Eduardo had always carried out the tests whenever any of them had any suspicions, and if he had been there when Nancy returned, he had probably thwarted her efforts. The hospital could no longer afford to keep Maria on life support after Dr. Eduardo's departure, and his monthly financial contributions created a substantial hole. Nancy was determined to keep fighting for Maria, even when everyone else thought it was best to fire her. Nancy tried her last desperate move, placing the infant daughter on Maria's chest. Right before doctors unplugged her from the machine, the infant, who had been wailing hysterically, seemed to find solace in her mother's embrace as she fell into a tranquil slumber, as if the angelic presence had placated the tempest. After 15 years of waiting, Sergio, Nancy, and the majority of the medical staff sat with bated breath, hoping for a miracle. Maria was the one who truly merited a miracle, but hopes do not always come true in stories. After what felt like an eternity, the miracle looked improbable. As she stood in one corner of the hospital, Nancy sobbed uncontrollably. Just when the other nurses were about to accept their destiny, the baby woke up and started sobbing again. After more than 5,400 days of darkness, Maria finally opened her eyes. Resembling a phoenix emerging from the ashes, that was her initial utterance. "Water." Sergio was elated to have his daughter back, and Nancy shared in his excitement. even though Maria's life will never be the same after watching the stories above. Do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.